Cool. So first of all, thanks for jumping on with me. These, as we were talking before we started, these talks have been kind of a hit. People have really good feedback on them. My goal has always been to help as many catchers as I can make it to that next level, whatever that next level might be. And when I started doing these talks, I thought, what a better way than talking to guys who are playing at the highest level or have played at the highest level, like talking with Mike Piazza, and just get your thoughts on, different fundamentals and the life of a catcher and what we can do to get these kids to succeed. So
I appreciate you having me on, Todd. And yeah, I'm excited to just talk and be able to conversate about catching and the position, the emotions that come from it. And I'm excited about this talk.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you about, when I go to my camps, I get asked all the time, Coach Todd, how can I stand out? Like if I'm in a showcase, I'm going to a tryout, what's going to help me stand out? And so I always go into what I call my, most important characteristics of a catcher, important attributes. And in my opinion, and in my experience, I always tell them first things, top of the list, in my opinion, no contest is going to be leadership qualities. Being a good communicator, leading by example, staying high energy, having that game savvy, just understanding the game, the ins and outs of the game. Next on my list would be physical toughness. The life of a catcher is obviously a tough one. The preview video of letting everyone know I was going to talk to you, I don't know if you remember, I played that video of the ricochet off the elbow to smoke you on the inner thigh, that kind of stuff. So the physical toughness that it takes to be a catcher, both actually I say physical toughness, but also mental toughness, the grind, so to speak, of being a catcher. And then after those two components or aspects, whatever you want to call it, then we finally start to get into the physical stuff. So, a lot of coaches or most coaches right now in today's game are putting receiving at the top of the list, then blocking, and then throwing finally is third on the list. And that kind of goes in order of importance or in order of the skill that happens the most throughout a game. So I guess I'm explaining all that, but my question is for you, do your important characteristics of a catcher match up with my list, or would you, what's your thoughts on the most important thing for these catchers, to stand out at a showcase or a tryout?
Yeah, I definitely think leadership comes in so many different ways. I've been around a lot of catchers, and some of them are quiet, but they lead by example. There's some that are, for me, I think a big thing is my energy. I try to. It's hard when you're playing 162 games. It's hard to bring that energy every day, but you have to do it. And it's more of a mental. Okay, like you got to tell yourself to turn it on. Let's go. And but I think definitely leadership's the number one. And I think I agree with your whole list. I think leadership, and then it comes to mental and then physical for me. I think, and I would put mental in front of physical, because when you're a catcher, it's a mental grind. You're catching 80 out of 162. Doesn't sound like you're catching a ton, but that's a ton of catching, and when you have a late game and you get done with the game at 11 o'clock and then you have a doubleheader the next day, you have to be on. There's no days off. When you're in pro ball, there's no days off. You feel like even when you have a day off, you're having, for catchers, you should never have a day off, because you should be studying, watching video, knowing what the next team, what they're going to be doing. You got to be watching how they take pitches. You can't take any at-bats of video off. And so, because your job is to know the ins and outs, not only of your pitcher, but all the opponents that come and step into the box that are right in front of you. You have to know, like, what triggers them, how they look, like what kind of, if they're gripping the bat, that means they're probably going to be swinging this pitch. If they look a little more loose and relaxed, they're going to be taken. Like, those little keys it's the job of the catcher to know that stuff. And so I definitely think the mental and then physical toughness, like as a baseball player overall, I think our whole team, I think baseball overall, you should be used to getting or having injuries and playing through them. Everyone on the field's hurt in some way. But as a catcher, I could tell you with experience, my wife will look at me at the end of the day. I'll get back and take my pants off, and she'll be like, oh my goodness. She'll count like 15 bruises on me, and I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, you could still hug me and stuff, but I definitely have a bunch of bruises. There's, I remember there was a couple years, and that I played, the first week I would get thumbed and I felt like I broke my thumb and I had to work through that almost the whole year. There's just things that go on with the catching, but for me, the mental side of getting physically hurt is like, ooh, I got hurt, but I'm gonna physically and mentally push through it, and I like that. Like I'm like the catching side. It's like it's football, but in the baseball atmosphere. So it kind of pushes me mentally of like, ooh, I'm gonna do this for my teammates. I'm gonna push through this soreness I have in my knee or on my collarbone that I just got a foul tip. I'm gonna show them that I'm gonna take it and be fine, and I'm gonna pull through for my team. So I definitely agree with leadership, the toughness aspect, and then when it comes to receiving, blocking, throwing, for me, I'm really tough on myself. Like I don't want to be good at one or two of them. I put them all in the same kind of category. I want to be all around. I want to be a good catcher. Knowing that the pitcher can say, hey, he makes me feel good when he catches the ball. He doesn't drag pitches out of the zone. I know I can throw a 10-foot curveball and know it's going to stay right in front of him. Knowing that, hey, if the leadership aspect comes to throwing, a lot of times these guys get stolen bases because you don't have enough time to throw them out.
Sure.
So that's where when I get throwing, you have to have the right mechanics to throw to bases, but that comes to, hey, you have to let the pitcher know you got to give me this amount of time so I can throw them out. Because a lot of times they're stealing bases because they're not stealing it on you, they're stealing it on the pitcher. So I feel like with a lot of the throwing mechanics and everything, the leadership comes out of that by knowing, hey, pitchers, knowing how to manage that staff, you got to give me enough time so I can throw these guys out. So there's a little, I think that comes, but all the abilities to throw, catch, block, I think they're one. I think if you want to be a catcher at the next level, you can't just be good at one of them. You have to be solid on all of them because all these catchers I'm playing with, they're good at all of them.
Sure. You actually said two things I want to touch on. One is, and I know you're aware of this, majority of what I work with is youth. So, our camps are for 10 to 16-year-olds. Every once in a while, like next weekend, which you're going to be at, we're going to be doing an advanced camp. So it's going to be 16 and up. But majority of what I work with is the kids.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is with the physical toughness side of things, I always tell them, if your reaction when you get hit by the ball is to drop to the ground and curl up and cry and want to stop, you're probably not going to have too much of a future at catcher, right? And I always tell them it's very important to understand the difference between being hurt and being injured. Like you were saying, we're always hurting a little bit. There's always something hurting, our feet, our knees, the bruises that we get, our stuff in our head in the helmet all night, day long on a hot summer day. Okay. And I guess to get to my question is, and I guess you already kind of touched on this, so I'll just maybe expand on it. Like, do you consciously think, well, here's a good example, the thumb. You got thumbed, which actually brings up a whole other topic about your transition from being an infielder to a catcher. That's probably one of the biggest transitions was learn how to catch those dang sinkers. I mean, I guess it's similar to a top spin ground ball that you got to, pick or whatever. But, how many times in your career have you been hit and thought, that hurts a lot, I'm good, and you've been hit and you're like, uh-oh. I think that I remember seeing a video when I was doing some research on you where you actually did get taken out of a game. I can't remember if it was a foul tip or a bat to the side of the head or something happened and you actually had to leave the game. It's one of the few times I've ever seen you leave a game. But you know what I'm saying? Like, understand the difference between being hurt and being injured. It's like a different kind of pain. And I guess you just got to know your own body, know your pain tolerance. And the main point is, if you're injured, you can't perform at your best for the team. You're going to be more of a hindrance for the team and mess up than help. So how do you draw that line? You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I've been taken out of 3 games since I've been in for my 5 years in the big leagues. And 2 of them have been in San Diego, and both of them were for concussions. So I remember my first one, I got a foul tip, threw the ball back. I knew I got buzzed pretty good. And then I started seeing, the next throw, I didn't catch it. It went right by me, and I thought I was catching it. And so that's when I was like, okay, there's something wrong with me. Got taken out with a concussion. The next year, same thing in San Diego. I got a foul tip with a bat. and I was like dizzy. I was pretty off, and I just knew there was a man on. I think there was a man on third, so I was like, okay, I got taken out right there. I was like, I'm gonna get. I don't want him to score. It was a tight ball game. I think it would be on me if something happened and I was, there was something going on with my head. So I kind of was like, no, I'm not going to let this guy score. Got myself taken out. The other time was this year. I got a foul tip to my knee, and there was a man on. I think there was a man on second with one out. Got a foul tip on my knee, and it got me in like right on the side of my knee, and I couldn't really squat. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to be able to block. So I was kind of like sideways on my stance. And then and it was kind of the same situation. I didn't want him to score, and it was a tighter ball game. And I just was like, no, I'm not going to. It was kind of more for me thinking of the team of, I don't want him to score. I felt bad because it was kind of a later in the ball game kind of thing, but I was like, I can't really squat. I don't know if I can block and get to a ball to my right. And it was, I swear, I think it was Bard was throwing, and it was definitely a harder pitcher to catch. So I was like, I'm just going to make sure and just get out of the game so my team could have the best chance to win. But my mindset was going towards the team.
Yeah, that's perfect. That was my exact. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That was my exact point.
no. But for instance, you get hit in the forearm, the bicep. I try to change that pain of like, ooh, I want to show my infielders, my outfielders, like, hey, I'm grinding this one out for you guys. Like, it's more, you're kind of have that in the in game, you don't feel it as much. And then it's usually after the game where you're like sitting at your locker and you're like, okay, yeah, that one got me good, but I'll be fine. I'm just going to I'm going to go get in the ice tub. I'll be fine tomorrow mentally. I'll go wash it off in the shower. It'll be good for tomorrow kind of thing. But there's definitely a difference. Like, I don't want to let my team down because of something that's going on with me, where there's a catcher that can come and do a great job and help finish out the game.
Yeah, I can honestly say that I got taken out by the trainer more than I took myself out of the game. It took so much to get me to leave that game just because I just love being in there. I remember one time I dropped down to block, and my hand was sticking out to the side, and the dang ball went straight to my fingertip and literally blew it up. It ripped the nail back. I tried to stay in the game. I walked the ball out to the pitcher. So I think I just broke my finger, and I showed him, and the fingernail was ripped up and it's bleeding. He's like, oh man, are you all right? I was like, I don't know. We'll see. And he threw me the next pitch. I went to throw it to him, and the ball went to like the first base dugout. There's no way to put pressure on it. So that was the one game my entire career that I actually took myself out. Other than that, it was, the trainer coming out and doing the eye test and checking swollen spots where you get hit by the ball. And they're like, no, we need to get some ice on that and get you out of here, that kind of stuff. So, and again, my whole point was for any young catchers that are watching, or coaches of young catchers, it's just important for these kids to understand the difference between being hurt, being injured, and just like you said, getting the confidence of your team, in particular pitchers, and even your coaches, that you're going to grind, you're going to take the pain and just deal with it. And it takes a unique personality for sure. And I always say this in my camps, for me, the pain would always it would fire me up. It wouldn't be like, oh man, I don't know if I can play. I'd be like, bring it. All right, let's do some more. It always pumped me up. So
the one video you need to post right there was the one from Happy Gilmore, where he's in front of the batting cage getting, that's kind of the feeling of like, let's go, like getting ready for hockey season.
Yeah, for sure. That's the mentality we need.
Yeah.
The other thing that you had said that I wanted to touch on, and now I'm actually kind of forgetting the exact point I was going to make of it, but I think it's with the communication with your pitchers. And you were talking about them having the confidence to spike one on you, and you're going to knock it down for them. And I guess we kind of touched on this a little bit before we went live, but adjusting during a game and that kind of stuff, how much, and I guess not, I'm going to answer my own question. It's probably different for each pitcher. I'm guessing some pitchers just want to be left alone, and then you have your thinkers that want to talk it out. So how much throughout a game do you go to the dugout, sit next to your pitcher and chat it up? And how much do you leave them alone? Obviously, if they had a good inning or a good half inning, they probably were, willing to chat with you. If it was a rough one, they probably want to be left alone. Like, talk a little bit about the communication with the pitchers, both during an inning while you guys are out there, and then when you get to, in between innings when you're on the bench.
Yeah, for sure. I think that communication, I think definitely on the field, but it starts off the field. I think that knowing how to communicate with each pitcher, because each pitcher is different, and knowing them on a more personal level, having a relationship. And I think a lot of that like me being comfortable with having a conversation, it starts with when I'm in the locker room, knowing, hey, like I'll go to one guy and be like, hey, I think changeups for you today are going to be good. I think, this is my reasoning. Or going to a guy being like, hey, this guy just throw sliders to him, you'll be good. Like knowing that even if it's only a minute conversation with one of the guys, it puts them to know like, hey, I'm thinking of you. And you have that conversation to where when they step on the mound, you've already had a conversation. You already know the mindset where they're at with what you said to them. And you already had a kind of game plan towards. So then, when you're in the game, you have a conversation. You already started that conversation before the game even started. And then when it comes to coming back in the dugout, if you see that they're like, they did some adjustments, they did some positive things out there, you can remind them and know like, hey, this is what I'm thinking for this next inning. Because each inning, I section off batter to batter, pitch to pitch, inning by inning. It's all different. You're making a plan, from first inning to the ninth inning, or each inning is so different. Seeing, you're facing the batter in that at bat, but there's 8 other batters that are watching that at bat. So they're getting information from that at bat. And that guy that's in the hole, he's looking right at you, seeing what your plan you just did. So he might be another righty, but you can treat him different. You can kind of use that to your advantage. So it's kind of a big, huge puzzle piece. You can say it's like a chess game, but I've definitely sectioned it off pitch by pitch, seeing a reaction from a righty. If we threw a fastball in on a 2-0 count, seeing how big of a reaction I get. A lot of times these guys, they have kind of the same game plan going out through against a pitcher. So a lot of times seeing some of those tendencies of, okay, a righty just took that and he wasn't expecting it at all. So his eyes are kind of pushed out a little bit. Knowing that information guides you through a game. And the other piece I want to bring up was being prepared is the scoreboard tells you everything. I think that's the one thing. Dave Wallace, he helped me through the minors getting started with catching. He's like, the scoreboard will tell you everything, what to put down, what even in counts and everything, how the game is, what the score of the game, the inning, all the information is on the scoreboard. So I think that's the one thing I'm always keeping my eyes on the scoreboard. It tells me a lot of the information. If it's a 2-1 ball game, we're in the 8th inning and I have a base open with the cleanup hitter up, knowing how to pitch to that guy compared to the guy after him, what's a better matchup, how I can give information to the guys to get them off their game plan to where I can go back to our game plan, how to go back and forth to our game plan to even pitch to their game plan a little bit to where it's just like a big puzzle piece. And that's a big reason why I fell in love with this position, because it's a constant, you're constantly thinking of what you want to do to how to control this game and keep the tempo at the right tempo that you want. So it's a position where your mind's never going to leave the field.
Absolutely. I love that. Do you call your own game, or have you been? Yeah. Awesome. And I think you said it perfect too. You so many times we're thinking 1, even 2 batters ahead, like, okay, this guy's on fire. That guy we've owned today, or this guy's on fire. That guy smashed last time, but that guy. So your brain's just constantly going. That's what we were talking about a little bit earlier, the mental grind of setting up hitters and understanding what they've done. And I can remember hearing, when I was catching, I'd hear the announcer, depending on game situation, usually obviously we got to know who's coming up next, but every once in a while you get in the heat of the game and then you kind of get caught up in getting this guy.
Yep.
And then I would hear the name, now batting number 14, so-and-so. I'd be like, oh, this is a guy who turned on it last time. Like immediately my brain just, and then I know exactly what pitch I want to call first, or this is a first ball fastball guy, or, we tried to fool this guy last time with off speed first and he smoked it. Let's go ahead and come, the mental side of that is awesome. So that's awesome points, Tony. So on the physical side of things, just to, again, I know this is my first question. We're already almost 30 minutes in, but On the receiving side of things, I wanted to get your input actually on all three, the big three we call them: receiving, blocking, throwing. With receiving, what would you say is the most important component to receiving? So, and again, I always like to, I'll give you what I teach and then you can agree or disagree and expand on. I have timing is tops on the list. And being on time just means, you know, our mitt is either minimizing the move or we're moving toward the strike zone as we receive the pitch. That's how we're on time. Next is going to be go ahead and move the ball. Back in my day, we were all taught stick it, minimize movement, body movement, minimize mitt movement, especially post catch, let the umpire decide. But as I know you're well aware, all the data and analytics are showing the guys that are moving the ball, when done correctly and on time, they're getting more strike calls. So go ahead and move it. Some guys move it a lot. Some guys move it a little. I actually am more of a minimalist, or whatever you want to call it. I like just get it to the edge. You don't have to go all the way up to your face kind of thing. But moving it is good. Give the umpire a consistent look is on my list, is third on the list, both with our moves and our mitt position. You know, getting to horizontal. If we have to go vertical for any reason, get it back to horizontal so there's more mitt for the umpire to see. And then finally pocket the ball. The more consistent we can pocket the ball, obviously the less wear and tear on our hand, but then also the ball will do a lot of the work for you when we're in the pocket. So timing, move the ball, give the umpire a consistent look, and pocket the baseball. Those are kind of my big four things. Where are you at with as far as like, and you don't necessarily have to go through four, but like what would you pick out as your most important thing in receiving that helps you have the most success?
Yeah, I think be on time. I think that's the biggest thing. I definitely agree with you with that. And I've talked to you about the whole breathing aspect, and I feel like the breathing really, when it comes to catching, you're trying to slow the game down consistently every pitch. And breathing for me helps me be on time on a more consistent basis. You know, that one thing you've done in the past is like yoga. You know, when we do yoga, the constant thing is breathing, because it takes away the thoughts in your head and makes you just focus on your breath. And so I use my breath to get me on time with my glove and making sure I'm on time to receive the ball and see the ball well. You'll actually, when you're more tense and you won't see the ball, and your reactions will be a little less smoother. When you're getting that breath all the way out, you're a little more smoother, you're a little more limp to where you can see the ball and react to a more athletic way towards the ball. So I definitely think the on time and breathing is the one thing for me I try to focus on the most. Like at the beginning of every offseason when I start catching, that's the first priority, is just making sure I'm breathing right and using my breath with my glove of my relaxation.
So is it like as the pitcher's, you know, lifting and you're starting to transition in whatever setup you're going to use, it's a breath in, and then as you settle in,
yes,
exhale,
exactly.
and then
It's like if you see the pitcher when he's like coming down the mound, I'm breathing my whole breath out while he's going down into the mound.
Gotcha.
Like, okay, and that's when I don't try to think about. I think in the past, like even like in the last couple of years, I've thought about my glove moving down. But when I get my mind off my physical relaxation of my glove going down, I'm more focused on my breath and being relaxed. My glove does a natural, like, okay, I'm like only focusing on seeing the ball. It's like my head's going towards the ball and I'm just waiting for it to come out. And then I'm like, okay, boom. Where it's like, that's when I know when I'm at my best. It's like, I feel like my head's like all the way out here, just trying to find the ball come out of the hand. And then I'm like, okay, there it goes. My hand just appears, kind of thing.
Right.
I feel
that's actually one of, I'm sorry, I was just going to say, that's one of the things that I bring up with the kids all the time with the timing part is exactly what you said is, and it's a physiological fact. It's the way the body works. A relaxed body is a quick body. The more tense you are, the slower you're going to move, the more relaxed, the quicker you're going to be. So glad we're in agreement with that. Yeah. How about on the blocking side of things? So again, I work with kids, and I think elite athletes like yourself, your mindset might be a little bit different than with kids. So for me, working with kids, I tell them what's going on between ears is by far the most important. We have to have a no fear attitude, right? Because we have to go into it knowing it might hurt a little bit. It might hit my bicep or my wrist instead of my chest protector, and it is what it is. Yeah. But no fear, and then anticipate. So I know a lot of coaches are very receiving orientated. So their thing is, all right, focus on being on time and still on that strike. And then if they bounce it, just react accordingly and block. Well, for kids with less experience and they're less explosive and they're, again, you guys are elite level athletes. With kids, if they're not expecting to block, they're going to react slower and they're probably going to try and pick and miss it, and it goes to backstop. So for me, number one most important thing in blocking is mindset, no fear and anticipation. What in your mind, what's the most important thing with blocking for you?
So yeah, like you said, like every pitch, even if it's a fastball, every pitch I'm like, I got to be ready to block. Like every pitch, because if I don't, I'm not going to block the ball. I don't feel like I'm ready enough to be able to block the ball without knowing, okay, I gotta be ready to block. And so the mentality aspect is the no fear, just knowing like every pitch I'm trying to block. So be ready for anything. That was the one thing with our bench coaches this year. That's his main rule, be ready for anything. And so that's the number one. Number two is, I think, is knowing that you don't have to, like, I try when I'm catching at my best is when I'm trying to block, I'm never trying to get my knees and everything perfect. Because in a game, like when you're doing drills, yeah, it's a good time to perfectly do your mechanics, block everything. But when it comes to the game, for me, it feels totally different from doing my work off the field. And then when I'm in the game, it feels totally different. I do whatever it takes to block the ball. I don't care if my knees don't even get to the ground. I just want the ball to go right in front of me so no one can advance. And I want that pitcher to know that I'm a brick wall. And I take pride in knowing, hey, that pitcher knows that he can, in an 0-2 count, he can just throw a slider right in the plate. It might bounce 2 feet up, but I'm going to block it and it's going to be just fine. So it takes an anxiety from my pitcher that's on the mound, that's all by himself, and makes him a little more relaxed to where it's probably going to make him execute that pitch even better to get the guy out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that's how I look at it. But definitely the mindset and knowing, hey, I'm going to block every pitch.
I love it.
You take pride in that. You're like, no, nothing's getting behind me. I'm not turning my back to my team that's in front of me to go fetch a ball to where a guy's going to be in a scoring position.
Yeah, I used to preach actually when I first started working with catchers 20 years ago that blocking was the most important thing we did. And then obviously over the years, they do all their data and analytics. And once it all came out, I'm like, that totally makes sense because we receive more than we do anything else. That receiving became most important. But I think taking pride in our blocking and anticipating, like you say, is so important, and saving that 90 feet. And if there's a runner on third, saving that run. And I remember I asked you once, I don't know if you remember, I think one of the things you do that's pretty unique, and it's not every time, but you do one knee block, like you kick your one leg out to the side. It's kind of the opposite side. So if you're going to your left, your right leg kicks out. If you're going to your right, your left leg kicks out. And I asked if you consciously think about doing that or if it just happens. And you said, no, it just happens. It's like instinctual, just the way my body works. And that's just how I end up. As long as I stop the ball, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I try not to think of it. I try to keep my upper body very quiet. Because I feel like when I keep my upper body very quiet, the ball doesn't move as far off me.
Yeah.
And with my breath, when I keep a really relaxed, quiet body, I feel softer. But I just really try to not change my upper body. When I'm in my secondary stance, I want my upper body to stay there because I have a good angle down. All I care. And sometimes there's some blocks where I'm just like, and I don't even get on a knee. I just block it. And I'm like, okay, good. It's like right there.
Yeah.
But there's going to be some times where you get a slider that's 3 feet out. You do anything possible. I remember Chris Iannetta, he's made some plays where, I'm not kidding, like he would block it. He would go like over here and block it, and then his body would come like in a delay where he did anything possible to block that ball, and then his body was a delay and just slid right by the ball where he blocked it. But there's some things where when you're practicing the cage, you're not going to be able to practice it how you're going to block in games. It doesn't matter what it looks like. What matters is it's right in front of you.
Absolutely. And that's actually, it's funny you say it that way because, again, working with catchers for 25 years now, and I used to preach textbook form. You got to have your knees wide, your feet toed out, your hips here, your mitt here. You need to get here if you want to be a successful blocker. And then as I started being the catching guy and all the videos I analyze and slow down and slow motion and check out, I'm like, none of these catchers are in perfect blocking position. They're not even, sometimes they're not even close, but the ball's right there. So my mindset and philosophy on teaching it totally changed. I'll tell them, just like you said, during drills, sure, strive for perfection, but in a game, well, the more you practice getting into perfect position, the closer you're going to be. You're probably not going to be there, but the closer you be in an actual game situation. But again, just get the job done and knock it down by any means. So
100%.
good stuff. So, and then finally on the throwing side of things, and this is actually one of the, I think I told you I asked my followers if there's anything they wanted me to ask you, and one of them was on throwing. What's your most important thing in throwing? And to kind of, I guess I'll ask this question in a second. We'll see where you go with this. But for me, number one most important thing in throwing, and we already kind of touched on this a little bit, is the mindset again, where we're expecting the runner to go, actually not even expecting the runner to go, like wanting him to go. Understanding that if the pitcher does their job, I'm going to throw this guy. You have to have that Johnny Bench mindset. You've probably heard Johnny Bench's quote, "I can throw at any man alive." He's famous for saying that confidence in our abilities, that swag is so, so important in that situation. If we're back there hoping the guy doesn't steal, or we're worried too much about the pitcher getting us the ball on time, whatever it might be, we're probably not going to have much success. So mindset, super, super important as far as throwing goes. And then I'll touch on the physical side of things, and I'll get your opinion on this. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, I use you as an example all the time during my throwing talks, and I'll explain. For me, getting rid of the ball quickly, so quick hands, is the most important physical component. If we can get it on its way as quickly as possible and put it somewhere near the bag, we're going to have a lot of success. So there are a lot of coaches out there that preach arm strength, arm strength, arm strength. You have to have a bazooka for an arm. And yes, it's definitely a difference maker. I call it a difference maker. But, and the reason I use you for an example, and I know you're aware of this, your average velocity is like 80 miles an hour. You got the Realmutos and Maldonados that are throwing 90 miles an hour, so 10 miles an hour faster than you, but you still have a sub 2 consistently because your hands are so ridiculously quick. So in my opinion, mindset's number one. And then next, when we start to get in the physical component, is quick hands. Get rid of it quickly. So where are you at as the most important thing in throwing?
Oh, for sure, hands. Right when the ball hits my glove, I want it in this hand, because I feel like my body knows what the timing needs to be to time it up with my back foot to throw it to second. I definitely want to feel like the pitcher is throwing against a cement wall and it's just deflecting and it's going right to second.
Sure, love it.
I always feel weird if I have to catch it and then I'm like having to like push off, like I'm throwing like a pitcher from catcher. I treat it like I'm turning a double play as a shortstop. Like if I'm receiving it from the second baseman, I'm just like boom, and just all I'm focusing on is getting it into this hand and getting a good grip. Finding a lace and throwing it. I truly, on my best throws, I feel like, and even if it's like a low ball, I don't try to get to one spot. I try, like when I'm practicing, I try to turn my glove this way instead of this way. But like if it's lower in the zone in your game, I'm not trying to bring it up, and that's time. Like where I'm just trying to, okay, just get it out and go. And I'll kind of like move my body. Sometimes I won't even get close. I'll like kind of be open still and just try to find an angle where I can kind of slice the ball to second and get it on the base. Because
sometimes you look like a middle infielder. I'm sorry to interrupt. I was just saying, sometimes you look like a middle infielder turning too. Just like
I try to during BP I try to take ground balls and try to do double plays because it helps me with catching. It's like just deflecting. I just want it to deflect. I don't really even feel like I'm closing the ball. All I'm thinking about is just deflecting it back into this hand so I can get a grip and throw it. I definitely feel like there's a delay. Like I try to get my back foot down and there's like a little like hover with my front leg to like get my hand up. So there's a timing aspect, but it's very like go. I want it to deflect. I'm putting on the base. I'm trying to keep it from waist down of an infielder. Cause that when I throw it high at a head, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of time when it's higher. That's a lot of time to bring the glove for a tag, where if you have it waist down for an infielder, for them to tag, it's so much quicker. Like it's a lot quicker for them to tag. So it's definitely the height of where I'm throwing and stuff. And that's why I try not to throw as hard, because I feel like I have more feel of like where I release and I can kind of put it where I want it to. And unless, like, instead of getting all the way back and trying to throw it, I feel like it just keeps staying short and darting it. But there's guys that, there's like Maldonado, like seeing him, like it's a rocket. Like he's really good at just like presetting. He's moving when the guy's going, then he throws a rocket down there and just online, where I'm a little different. It's just I'm all about just being quick. So it's just depending on who you are and knowing like what your strengths are, and then applying those and finding a catcher that you can kind of see and idolize a little bit, and help using them for video to help you.
I've actually said that at my camps before too. I was like, I pretty much guarantee Tony has a better than 80-mile-an-hour arm, but your focus is getting rid of it, not necessarily throw the ball hard, just get rid of it. And sometimes it comes out a little, softer, not as high velo, but it's still making that 127 feet. So, and I think something cool with you too, and you were just touching on it, you have the middle infielder's perspective too. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but I always tell the kids, there's nothing wrong with bouncing it. There's nothing wrong with the one hop there. We'd much rather you skip it there than launch it. And as a former middle infielder, would you agree with that? You're giving me a chance to catch and tag versus having to reach up or even jump and then try and get back down. It makes it a lot harder, right?
100%. Keeping it low is way better than keeping it high for a tag, for an infielder. So I definitely agree with that.
Do you have a go-to drill when you're working on your quick hands, or do you just basically just practice your throws? Is there something where you break it down? Do you do toonie? Do you do flat glove? Do you use any of the all-star training gloves, anything like that?
I try to, sometimes I'll throw against a wall and just like practice getting out of my glove. Just like, and even when the biggest time when I'm playing catch is just playing catch. Like when I'm playing catch with someone, I'm just I catch it. I'm like, okay, I got it. Like just getting out of my glove and feeling the way it comes out of my glove, getting different angles, never trying to be perfect, but just trying to get the ball out. But playing catch really helps me. I throw against a wall, just taking ground balls, and even like taking ground balls helps me just get it out of my glove, get a good grip. Like, but being quick with it, because I definitely agree with you, is the quick hands. I feel like that's helped me a lot with having to throw guys out, because on my best throws, it feels like I'm like, okay, it's out. And I'm like, okay, that's a perfect throw right on the base. I was like, good. All I cared about was getting out of my glove and putting it on the base.
Yeah. And you're very good at doing that, by the way. So, all right, so let's do this. Let's change speeds over here, change topics. So I was just at CatcherCon this last weekend, and one of the things that I brought up with some of the guys that were speaking, I didn't speak this year, I just went as a fan and learn. But one of the things I brought up, or one of the speakers talked a lot about stances and setups and the different, when to set the left knee down, or actually just really talked about left knee down, right knee down, traditional setups. Actually, first of all, let me ask, are you a traditional secondary guy when there's runners on, or will you still set up on one knee?
Only with man on first, I sometimes go left knee down.
Okay. And that's your comfort zone.
I've never gone right knee down. I've never felt comfortable with that. Yeah,
that's actually really common. It's funny because as it started to become, and I'm sure you know this too, there's guys been sitting up on one knee since like the 50s and 60s. I think back then it was more for comfort than anything, comfort and energy conservation. But now they found that, all the different benefits and, getting lower to the ground, below the low pitch, opening up the window for the umpire, all that stuff. But when I started to teach this at my camps, literally 95% of the catchers prefer left knee down, and they feel really awkward with the right knee down.
Yeah.
But I know you know this too, a lot of the catchers in throwing situations are setting their right knee down because of the rhythm of the footwork. It comes a little more naturally versus left knee down and having to do almost like a rock and fire or reset that right foot kind of thing. But all I'm getting at here, I feel like I'm babbling, is what goes through your mind, again, more the mental side of things. And I'll give you a couple scenarios and just see what you say, what goes on. So you have, and I'm just going to throw out names. I know these aren't necessarily guys you play against, but you have Mike Trout coming to the plate. So obviously one of, if not the best hitter in baseball, he's right up there in top 3 probably. And again, I know they're not on the same team, just throwing out names. Tim LeCastro just walked. So you got one of the fastest dudes in the world on first, obviously huge stolen base threat. You got one of the best hitters, super powerful hitter coming to the plate. Your pitcher is, he's let's say he's quick to the plate. He's like literally like a 1-1, 1-2. He's pretty quick. He's going to give you plenty of time to throw him out at, and you just called a down and away slider to Mike Trout. So, and you already kind of answered the question, I guess, since you say you almost never go right knee, or you rarely go right knee.
I maybe did right knee maybe once this year. Maybe.
Did it just kind of fold down on its own, or you?
It was more so I was going like away to a righty with a slider, and I had a guy that was a command guy. So I was like, okay, I kind of was just getting low, and I kind of did like how Yachty kind of rolls into it with the right knee going down. And I just had my right knee down a little bit, and I was like, okay. I did it once, and I was like, it was okay. But, well, with that scenario, like, okay, Trout, slider, Castro at first. Depends on, if it's a tight ball game, I'm going to stay in a secondary stance. There's a lot of catchers that I see that are on base that get on a knee and stuff. I haven't been comfortable enough to know that I can block from that position 100%, and then I can throw a guy out with the knee down 100%. So I haven't done that. I really like my secondary stance and what it makes me feel like. But in that situation, I'd probably be in my secondary stance and waiting for him to go. Because if I see a base runner on first, I'm never getting on a knee. I'm always in my secondary stance.
Cool. No, that's perfect. That's exactly. And I think obviously at that point it's autopilot for you. You just know exactly what you want to do in that situation. But how about this? So, it's early in the game, 1 out. Here's what I'm trying to get. It's not coming out very smooth. You've called a slider, down and away slider. So there is the chance you might need to block if he spikes his slider. Do you consciously think, okay, I got to get in blocking mode? Nope, I'm staying in throwing mode. And if he does spike it, I'm going to pick it and still try and throw him out. Does that go through your brain, or do you just pick one skill to prioritize and then react accordingly to if something changes?
So I think I've never been a catcher where I had to get into a stance for throwing mode. I've always been a guy, I needed to get into a relaxed state to receive a ball. Like, okay, I'm going to get into a little smaller target and receive a ball, or it's like, okay, block time. Because my secondary stance helps me block, and I feel really comfortable throwing from that position also.
Got it.
And so, like, I think more conscientious, it's more so, okay, a slider, 1 out, man on first. If I don't block this ball, he's on second. So the priority is blocking. If he goes and it's going in the dirt, I'm going to pick it and throw it. So, like, if I see him go, I'm not even thinking about blocking. It's all about picking. And, like, I'm just going to be I'm getting him out. So I'll be in my secondary stance, and I can block and throw from that position.
Got it. Is there a line you draw as far as, that slider you see it's going to bounce? The pickable ones obviously are just right. I don't know why I'm talking like showing you right here, but there's pickable ones, and is there a line that's drawn that you're like, okay, I'm going to pick and throw if he goes, but then it hits out just in front of home plate? Do you still go to pick mode, or do you think you would instinctually just start sticking out an elbow or trying to jump in front of it?
If I see a guy go, I'm picking it. I'm definitely picking it. Like, and if it's a long hot pick, something like that, I'm definitely gonna try to get the guy out. If I see him go, I'm gonna try to get him out because he's already going second. If I'm gonna have enough time, if he goes and it gets by me, I'm gonna go scramble and get the ball and make sure he doesn't get to third. I'm gonna try to just get glove on it and try to get him out.
Got it. No, I love that philosophy, and that's actually what I talk about all the time at my camps. And I've posted about it before too, and I'll get a debate on that one. Some of the coaches will jump on and say, "Why would you teach kids to pick?" I'm like, it's super important to be able to pick, and we practice it. You should be practicing it.
100%.
Do you practice it? Do you practice pick and throw?
Yeah, that's in my pregame routine. Awesome. So I go from I'll start on both knees on the ground. I'll do receiving, and then I'll get into my stances and do receiving. And then I'll get into my secondary and do picks with transfer and throw it back quick to my bullpen catcher. And then I'll do blocks. I'll do blocks with my secondary stance, and I'll do blocks with just my regular stance. And after that, I'm pretty usually warmed up.
Got it. How long does that take? Like 10, 12
It
minutes?
takes me about 10 minutes. I usually do about 10 minutes.
Cool. One more scenario, and then I want to move on. Time's flying here. And you've already kind of answered this, but I'm going to ask this anyways. Let's say you have Bryce Harper up, so big, powerful lefty up.
Yep.
It's a 3-run game, so kind of close, middle of the game, maybe 6th inning-ish, getting a little bit later. Runner at third. You've got Bryce on the ropes. You've got him 1-2. You just busted him in with a hard 95-mile-an-hour fastball, and the pitcher out there has a decent, pretty good changeup. So you went hard in. You're going to go soft away. Would you risk setting down your left knee, getting lower, and get under that low changeup to try and steal that last strike on Harper? Or would you stick with your traditional secondary, thinking you can still receive that low changeup, with the runner on third? Do you want to stay ready to block, or do you focus on getting Harper out? And so there's a potential for giving up 1 run if it sneaks by you instead of a 2-run jack if Harper gets a hold of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. The one thing that I learned from Sandy Alomar that he taught Roberto Perez is the shoulder. So with Jan, when coming up with the Indians, with Jan and Roberto, they were both kind of wider setup catchers, and that's how I kind of learned having like a wider base. And for that scenario, I think I would probably still, there's a base open. We got him 1-2. He's one of the best hitters in the league. Man on third. You have 3 runs, so that means if he hits a home run, you're still winning by 1, but you're in the middle of the game. So I'm probably telling the pitcher, hey, this is in the dirt, like get this down. I don't care if there's base open. I'm probably pointing first, like there. And then I'm usually probably going to be in my secondary stance, but I'm going to try to get my shoulder a little lower. So then if he makes a perfect pitch down in the zone, I'm already beating the spot a little bit. So I'm trying to block, but at the same time, it's hard to get runs in the big leagues. And if he gets a free run by a pass ball by me, that sucks. Like we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to block. My first priority is blocking, but at the second, I don't want my pitcher to throw a lollipop to try to get this guy out he knows what this pitcher has too. And that's the other thing. Like, scout reports, oh, this guy's hitting 100 on changeups. But, hey, the guy that's standing in there knows that he's hitting 100 on changeups, and he knows that he has a good changeup too. But sometimes scout reports don't work because he knows that he has a changeup. So it's like it kind of evens itself out to where I just think you're going to pitch around him a little bit. Maybe you have about what'd you say the count was? 1-2. You have 3 pitches to get him out. If you don't, he's walk, man on. You have 1 out, man on first and third, and you have a double play situation. Hopefully he's usually he's hitting cleanup. So you have the guy in the 5 spot. He's still a good hitter, but I think we have a better shot with him than Bryce Harper. Then we can get a double play and not give up any runs. So it's like you kind of have a different scenario, but that's when the communication leadership aspect comes into play. Hey, like these pitchers are good, but sometimes they need to be reminded of what the situation is. Hey, like, be smart. All right, change up. Let's go. Like, showing them like what you truly need. And like, you can even like, there's sometimes where it's like a fist pump. I got you. Like you can throw in the dirt, you can kind of give hand signals of like, you got 3 pitches. Let's go. Like, just try to make some strike to ball pitches right here. We could throw one up above the zone. Like, maybe we throw a fastball up in the zone to set up a curveball or, stuff like that. But knowing, hey, base open, like that's where the communication aspect comes too.
I love it. There's 2 things you said that was such an awesome answer, Tony. So number 1, just change your posture a little bit. Like you say, lower the shoulder, change your posture, sink in a little bit more. You're still in your secondary, but you're kind of in a receiving secondary, right? Yeah. So there's different adjustments you can make, which is awesome. And then, and I've talked about this kind of stuff at camps before, and a lot of young catchers don't realize all that stuff you just said. Like the second you get to 1-2, it all compute. You know what I mean? Like it's just, we have this base open. Oh, we got him on the ropes, but I still need to be like, it all just kind of flows in your brain. And the way I try to explain to him is it comes with experience. At first there might be a little pause, like you catch that pitch and you're throwing it back and you stand there for a second. You think, well, at the level that I coach, a lot of coaches are calling the pitches anyways. But if the catcher has their own game, you might pause for a second, compute those kind of thoughts, and then, okay, here's where we're going to go with. So just any of the catchers that are watching, and I'm probably going to use that clip, Tony, because that was such a good answer on that question of just how a big league catcher's brain works like that. You just said like 7 different really important thoughts, but it all comes between pitches. You know what I mean? And it's amazing stuff. So I love that. And I could keep going on scenarios for like another hour, but I don't want to do that.
No, we can do it. These are fun. I like it.
Awesome. I'm going to go through just some quick questions for you, and then we'll dig into some of the questions that were asked via DM and some other things on my social media. One of the biggest debated topics on all the times when I post about this is mask on or mask off.
Okay.
I think it obviously depends on game situation. If there was an instance where you threw your mask off because something else was going on, and then you're like, uh-oh, now the guy's about to score. I probably should have my mask on, but I already took it off. So there's instances where your mask is off when it should be on. But in my experience and what I used to do is I never mess with my mask. And I had a 2-piece. I was an old school 2-piece guy. Just make sure it fits right. If it's shifting around, it doesn't fit right, then sure, you want to get rid of it as often as possible because the dang thing gets in your way. But bunt plays, I take it off for pop-ups, but bunt plays, tag plays, force plays, I always had my mask on. And I think that was just preached to me at a young age. It's obviously safer. Don't waste any time. Don't drop it, ended up stepping on it, something to that effect. But are you a mask on, mask off guy on all the different, instances of different responsibilities that we have?
So yeah, I think I have my mask on always except for pop-ups. I think that's kind of me. I like having my mask on. I used to wear a 2-piece, and I started getting concussed with the 2-piece. I switched to the hockey mask, but the hockey mask makes me where I can see a little bit more and I can keep it on. I use it as protection also. So it's definitely on pop-ups. If it's a shallow pop-up, usually sometimes I won't even take it off. I'll just kind of keep my head all the way up to where I can see the visual of the ball. But other than that, if it's a big pop-up, I'll usually just turn, find the area where I'm not going to run, throw my helmet there, and then go after the ball. But other than that, I keep it on always. On bunt plays, definitely on bunt plays, force plays, any kind of play at home, I'll keep my mask on.
Cool. And obviously, I think the main reason would be safety on the plays at the plate, right?
Yes.
And it's amazing how many. Well, the funny thing is a lot of the time. So if someone starts to debate me on it, I'll try and click on their profile and see, and it'll be like a picture of them pitching. Like, of course, it's a pitcher's, trying to debate me on catching kind of stuff. But the philosophy on, no, take your mask off so you can see better. And it just blows me away how many still think taking the mask off is better, in particular with plays at the plate. And I actually posted a video not too long ago of, now I'm forgetting who it was. Might have been Roberto Perez catching a pop-up way back at the backstop with his mask on. Just don't even mess with the mask.
Yep.
And so, again, that was just an often debated topic on my social media. I want to get your opinion on that and what your thought is. So
definitely mask on for sure.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to get into some questions from the followers. Let me double check something real quick here, Tony. Let me check my Facebook, make sure I'm not missing anything important over there. So give me just a second. We got a couple really good questions here, Tony. So I'm going to write one of these down. Off season. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. So, questions from my followers. So, first one, and I was going to write down their names, but I'm just going to ask instead of saying who asked it. Thinking back to high school, what do you wish you knew then, what you know now? As far as baseball, I'm sure they're just, asking was there anything you would have done differently? You still obviously made it to the highest levels, but is there anything that you wish you would have knew back then that you know now that you would have done something differently on your path?
Yeah, I think the one thing is knowing the importance of how the mental side of baseball becomes. When you get to the big leagues, when you're in pro ball, like the mental side of the game is huge, and it's a factor where it really puts you over the other people if you have the mental side on your side. I think the one thing, when I was in high school, I would work out, and all I thought my workouts were just working out my muscles, get stronger, get bigger. But now when I work out, I use it not just to get stronger and more flexible, but I use it to mentally be strong also. I use it to, I'm about to go deadlift. I'm gonna make it happen with my mind. I'm gonna put my mind into a state of where I'm practicing my mentality of, if you're in the right mentality, you can do anything in this world. And that's how I treat anything in my life now. Is baseball has taught me that, where it's a grind. Like we say, it's a grind, and you hear it all the time. But when you're playing 162 games and you're constantly traveling, you're on buses, you're on flights, you're from hotel to hotel, you're living out of a suitcase, you're moving, you're having double headers after a game that got done at 2:00 in the morning. You're not getting any sleep. You're having to manage your family. There's a lot going on becoming a baseball player. And it's not like high school where you're playing, I think, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, have the weekends off, and then you have maybe 2 practices in there. Where pro ball, it's every day, and you're expected to do your job. So I definitely think just knowing the mentality and how important it is, and you can be practicing it when you're doing yoga, or you're working out, or you're even in bed, or if you're brushing your teeth or going to the bathroom, you can be practicing a mentality of being in the moment, present in what you're doing, and achieving and executing your plan of what you're doing. So I definitely think if I knew that in high school, I would have definitely made it more important to focus on the mentality aspect of just how to conquer life in general, because it does help you on the field.
Awesome answer. And it's funny because there's been a lot of the stuff we've talked about so far, and your answers, I'm like, get out of my head, Tony, because that's the same. We have a lot of the same mindset. And I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but I talk about it at my camps all the time. My mental game was like the ultimate demise of my career. I was, 6'3", ripped 200 pounds. I turned myself into a really good baseball player, working my butt off, and got strong, but I never trained my brain. I didn't prepare myself for facing the best of the best and how much failure is involved with the game. And I can tell you, the second that confidence started to kind of go out, it ruined everything. Like the confidence is so important, and I work hard, and I understand that's where confidence comes from. It comes from reps. But the second you start doubting yourself, so like you said, even if I'm just doing a deadlift, I'm thinking I can accomplish anything. You know what I mean? And the second that mindset changes, man, it's amazing the power of the mind over the body, for sure.
100% unravels quick,
Yeah.
when you're mentally there and you're mentally in the moment, it definitely helps you achieve anything you want to achieve in life.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Love it. So I'm reading through these questions, and we've actually already answered like the next 2. One was talking about, actually, maybe we didn't go too much into depth on this one, so maybe you can expand on it. But after growing up as a middle infielder, what was the toughest part of transitioning into catcher?
Sure.
And it was that, a lot of people transition, like, from high school, you were a shortstop, you get to college, they turn you into a catcher kind of thing. You were actually all the way up in professional baseball and high, getting into, it was AA, I think, was your first right transition. So that's pretty high level. What was the most challenging part of that?
I think, I was talking to my wife, and when I was a little kid, I had like a ping pong table that had a flat side on it, and I would throw a tennis ball and give myself ground balls all the time. And I visualized myself making awesome plays, you know, in the ninth inning, and doing stuff like that. I think when I was told like, hey, you want to try catching, I never visualized myself behind the plate throwing someone out at second for the last out in the World Series. I think that was the one thing I had to formulate, visualize myself doing great things, because I had my whole life as an infielder making great plays and knowing the state of mind where I need to be to visualize myself to achieve what I wanted to achieve. And so the visualization of the catching, trying to get my mind into seeing myself do things before I even step on the field. And I think things that helped me do that were catching bullpens, you know, catching pitchers, and just being intensely involved and being in the moment. And like, okay, this pitch is a 0-2 count and he's throwing a fastball down away, and I really need to catch this and be there, be like strictly in that moment to like, then when you get to when you're actually in the game in a squat, you've already been there. You're going to do it because you're comfortable with that situation. And then when those situations come in games, you're like, oh, this is a piece of cake. I've already been here 50 times in my head when I was sleeping or before I went to bed. So it's like, I think it was so easy doing the visualization for infield, because I did it when I was 8 years old against the ping pong table, you know, and I just gradually kept the visualization going. And it was an easier transition going to pro ball, because I was like, I did millions of reps, you know. Now, hey, you're a catcher. Okay, I need to do it. I need to start figuring out my process of getting the visualization with that position.
Love it. That's something I think a lot of kids, I know when I was first taught visualization, I was literally like, what? How's that going to help me? That's not getting in a cage and hitting some balls. That's not actually making a throw. What's visualization going to do? And then when I finally bought in, it was really eye-opening, the changes it made. Little side note to visualization: when you do your visualization, are you in your body, or are you like a drone overlooking and watching yourself play? There's two different kinds of visualizations. There's being inside, and then there's being outside your body. What are you?
Oh, I'm inside my body for sure.
Inside your body, yeah. I kind of transition from both. Sometimes, depending on if I was doing my hitting thoughts or my catching talk, sometimes I'd like to sit back and watch. I don't know. It's kind of weird how the brain works. But do you still do that to this day? And is it like when you're laying in bed usually, or?
Yeah, 100%. I think the biggest thing I see, you know, with Trevor Story and Nolan, they're constantly doing visualization, you know, and being in that state of mind. Those are extra reps, and they're reps that don't physically, when you're playing that many games, and your body, when you're getting older, your body's sore. So it's like good reps that don't include making your body sore. So it's like, it's a way of getting your reps in, and when you're not even on the field.
Love it. Yeah. So for any young catchers watching this, talking now and watching the replay and stuff, that's you got to buy in. If you don't truly believe what the visualization, or understand, like, learn it, understand it, buy into it. All of the best do it. Actually, this is a random thought that just popped in my head. Back in was that 98, the home run race with Sosa and McGuire?
Yeah, 98.
98. I don't know if you remember any of this, but they used to show McGuire, like, you have obviously the batter, you have on deck, you have in the hole, and then you have whatever the next guy's called. Like, McGuire would be 4 hitters waiting his turn. He had a med ball in the dugout, and he would do like muscle activation, rotational stuff. I saw a video of it. And then when he's in the hole, he would stand there, and he's going through, he's seen himself hitting a 450-foot bomb to dead center, just sit there with eyes closed, visualizing. Then he'd get up on the deck circle, work on his timing, watching the pitcher, and kind of developing his timing. And then by the time I get up there, he'd already seen the home run. He got his timing down. He got his muscles activated. And sure enough, dropping tanks left and right. So, but just visualization, that was my whole point. So that was awesome stuff. Good stuff. Let's see. So this is a good one. Let's get your opinion on this. What, in your opinion, is the difference? I know what it is for me in my brain, and I'm going to let you just kind of say your piece, but what's the difference between big league catchers and everyone else? Like big league catchers, minor league catchers, and everybody else. Obviously, there's a huge physical component to you have to be an elite level athlete to catch at that level. and actually I just kind of gave my answer or gave a hint at it. But in your opinion, what is the difference maker that turns you into a big league catcher as you're trying to make that transition coming up from an infielder?
I think for me, I think knowing that you have to have that servant mentality. You know, you have multiple jobs. You know, you're seeing the field. You're not looking into the hitter. You know, the hitter's right here next to you. You have the guy that's on the mound that's helping you do your job to where you need to help him, and he's in the middle of the field all alone. And I think once I turned my mind into, okay, I'm not just squatting behind here, catching the ball, blocking, throwing, but I'm actually a part of that pitcher in front of me. That puts it on a total different level, because then you start taking pride, and then that's when the preparation goes to a different level. Because being a catcher, if you're not prepared, you're not going to survive in the game that long. I use the preparation we talked about. I use that preparation to get the nerves out of me before games. I use that preparation to show the pitcher that I truly 100% care, and I want you to succeed up there, and I want to feel like I'm standing right next to you on the mound and delivering the pitch with you. That's how deeply I'm invested into what he's doing up there and what I'm doing back there. So I think getting on the different level of the relationship with that pitcher, and that's just having a small connection off the field. If it's just talking about what his mindset and how he wants to be, like what kind of pitcher he sees himself, and so you can picture that with him, what he's pitching for. If he's pitching for his baby girl, or if he's pitching for his family back home, like what are these Latin pitchers, like they just left Venezuela and came all the way to the United States of America, and they're pitching. They're alone. You know, they can barely speak English. What are they pitching for? Knowing that about each pitcher. And so then when they're on the mound, I think that connection is what makes a guy coming up the ranks to a big leaguer, is knowing how to connect to your pitchers and knowing how to be the leader they need so they can succeed and you can succeed.
I love it. I actually have several pro guys who follow me and college guys, and I know some of them are going to watch this, and I think that a lot of times young guys will get caught up in me. Well, I need to perform as an individual and put up the numbers I need to put up if I want to make it to that next level. You know what I mean? I need to hose everybody. You know what I mean? But you said it perfectly. If you can get that, change your mindset to that selflessness and know that you're there for the pitcher. Obviously, if you don't hit, you sit. So you got to be able to swing a little bit and all that kind of stuff. But just that selfless mentality of being there for the pitcher, being there for the team is such a difference maker. So again, we're right on the same page of what I think the difference is between everyone else, the big leaguers and everyone else. So awesome stuff. Good stuff. Final one. I don't want to take too much more of your time. And this was one I just pulled off the Facebook page that someone typed in as we were chatting here. And if they follow you, they probably see this, but because you just posted, actually, I think it was in your stories. And actually, I can't remember what you were doing. Were you doing the pulley things, or you were doing some jumping, or you're doing something?
Oh, I was doing my sprinters with the band on. Yeah.
Oh yeah, with the band on. Yeah. So the question basically was like off-season quickness, to develop quickness and athleticism. I think they actually put foot quickness, but what is like? Well, two things. I know you guys. How long of a break do you take before you give your body some recovery time? Even though it was a shortened season, 2020, such a crazy season, it's still a grind. It still wears on you. So how long of a break do you take? And then, what is now that you're starting to work, as you're starting to post about it, like what is a typical workout for you? And maybe give like a couple days, because I know one day, maybe, I don't know what your philosophy is, but maybe you're a lower body guy one day, upper body next day, yoga, whatever it is. Like give a typical off season, maybe a week, a five day period. What's a typical off season workout for you regimen? How long of a break do you take? And then what do you do for like a 5-day series?
Yeah, usually it's usually about 2 to 3 weeks after the World Series. That's when I'll start doing like yoga, maybe some core exercises, stretching, band work, for my shoulders, doing hip cars, just making sure my four corners of my body are kind of in a good spot to where my body's aligned and I'm ready to start putting weight on. So it's usually about 2 to 3 weeks after the World Series, I'll start doing that stuff. I'll give my body a break. I'll go biking. I'll go on a bunch of dog walks, hikes in those 2 to 3 weeks, and then I'll start doing the yoga, stretching, making sure my four corners are ready to go. So then after that, I'll start. Usually, I like, for me, everyone's different, but for me, I'll have a main lift. Okay, if it's deadlifts, that's a big part of my lower half, and like full deadlifts vary a full body. You're still doing kind of a full body workout, but I'll have deadlifts, squats, I'll do, and then an upper body. So I'll kind of split it out. Like if I do a Monday, I'll do Monday deadlifts. I'll have deadlifts with an activation of like doing these pogos. They're like jumping up and down, and I'll do like, and it depends on what I'm trying to do. If I'm going to try to move some weight, I'm doing 6 to 7 sets of 3 for deadlifts. If I'm trying to move a lot of weight, if I'm trying to get more strength, I'll go like 5 sets of 5. And that's kind of my deadlift with an activation, and I'll do like a med ball toss plus some core work. I love doing core work because it makes me, if I'm strong in my center, I feel like I can conquer the world if I'm strong in my core, in my kind of my lower back area. So if I really focus on kind of just this mid area of my body, because your limbs, they need to be strong, but I feel like a lot, like for catching, like if you're strong in that area, you're going to be good over a long period of time.
I would say the core is the engine.
Yes, 100%. Yeah. So I'll do like deadlifts, and then the next day I'll do like an upper body, plus I'll do like sprints that day, and I'll do flexibility. And I'll usually take a day where like in between those days, I'll do yoga. I'll do yoga and stretching, and I'll do upper. And then the next day I'll do squats. And that like depends if I want to move weight. It depends on the reps and sets. And then the next, it would be more of a pull day, maybe doing more body weight stuff, med ball tosses, vertical and horizontal, and then core. But I'm doing core probably like 3 to 4 times a week on top of my workouts. And then yoga, I'm doing yoga 2, 3, 4 times a week, depending on how my body feels. And then I like mixing it up too. Sometimes I'll do, like if I'm feeling strong, but I'm feeling kind of tight, I'll put yoga and I'll make that more the priority with stretching. And you definitely, I don't like being robotic with my workouts, because you have to listen to your body, over a long course of a 162 game season. If you don't listen to your body, you're just getting it mad. So you have to know, like, okay, even though you might be tired and like physically tired, there's some times where you need to push your body and move some weight to wake up your body and activate your body, to where there's some days where you're like, no, I'm beat. Okay, I'm going to do more body weight stuff, maybe do some sprints to wake it up that way, but constantly tricking your body to where the number one goal is to feel good at 6:40 at night. That's the number one thing, is the goal is to feel as your body, make it feel as good as possible at 6:40 at night, and that's the goal of every time, you see yourself for a game. You might need to take a day, or you might need to work out twice in that day, but it just depends. You have to listen to your body, but everyone's different. But I'm definitely a big proponent of keeping my core and keeping my four corners, flexible, but strong and stable.
Awesome. Now, is that you, or do you have someone that you train with?
So a lot of the Rockies trainers have helped me kind of put together a program, but at the same time, my wife's helped me a lot with kind of the flexibility and stability and yoga. I think yoga, I learned a lot from the Indians too. The Indians are very big on yoga, and I brought that kind of into my program. But I've definitely learned too about like just seeing where my body feels like. If I feel tight in my shoulders, I'm gonna try to work on more of my flexibility. If I feel tight in my hips, I'm gonna do the same thing. But Um, we're not baseball players, we're not bodybuilders, you know, but at the same time, I definitely think, like you said, like the engine's your core, you know, that, you know, your back muscles, like doing triceps and biceps, they all look good. Sometimes you need to take a break on your elbows because you're using them all the time and you just have to listen to your body. But I definitely think tricking your body and doing a lot of different dynamic jumping stuff, sprints. I don't like running long distance. I like riding bikes. I feel like that flushes out my body. Even walking, like I love I love hiking too, because you know, stepping on rocks and it tightens up kind of your smaller muscles that are around your knees and stuff like that, you know. And sometimes you need to get out of the gym and smell some fresh air, and you know, like there's just mixing it up, you know, giving your body a little mix up is actually good.
I love it. I love it. I think anyone who's listening, especially my young catchers, I think it's so important. You said it about 72 times in that talk about working out. Yeah, the word flexibility. Some of these kids get so caught up in just getting strong, and there's no flexibility training at all. They'll work out right up to the point where they have to go off to class or go, you know, they have to leave. You need to program in some stretching, some foam rolling, something for flexibility at the end of the workout. Is just super important. And I love that you keep bringing up yoga as well. It's funny, when I started doing, I call them my super camps. So I have my regular camps that I go and I teach the big three: receiving, blocking, and throwing. We also have our super camps that are 4 days long, and we incorporate all the specialty plays, but we also incorporate classroom sessions, gym sessions, and one of the gym sessions is yoga. And I remember the first time I threw on my super camp and I brought all the kids to the yoga room, you see some of those big muscly guys going, bro, I don't yoga. What are we doing in here? And then I'd, you know, just punch in my phone. And then the example I used was Giancarlo Stanton, you know, 6'6", 250 pounds of muscle. And I show all the kids a picture of him, and I don't know the names of the poses, but he's doing some yoga pose, and you can see their eyes get big, and they're like, oh, whoa, okay. And I think that a lot of young catchers out there and baseball players altogether don't understand, maybe a little more so nowadays than a few years back, but don't understand how many of you actually use yoga as a big component to your training, because it's so important. There's so many more benefits. Just obviously the flexibility side of things, but another thing you brought up was the breathing, right? The mental focus, being able to focus on, you know, whatever pose you're in, and feeling the burn and the stretch, and the being able to stay focused and hold the pose, and mental toughness and endurance side of things. Like, there's just, the benefits are endless. So
100% keeping that heart rate still, you know. That's a big thing. Just like when you're doing a pose and holding it, it's a lot harder than it looks, and it's a lot harder keeping your, instead of hyperventilating doing it, it's hard. It's a lot harder when you're just focused and keeping that heart rate at a still. So
yep, for sure. I remember when first time I tried yoga, that was I couldn't calm my brain this whole time. I'm sitting there thinking, this hurts. This really hurts. I don't know if I can hold this, instead of breathing and, you know, settling in. But anyways, so hey, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I appreciate you. I told you about an hour, and we're at almost an hour and a half. So really good stuff, Tony. I appreciate it. Best of luck this off season. Keep working hard. I'm really looking forward to seeing where you end up, and we kind of chat a little bit about you know, fresh start, new beginnings. It's gonna be really cool to see where you end up. So and congrats on the baby on the way.
thank you.
Yeah, stay
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, stay healthy, stay safe out there. And for those of you that are watching that don't know, Tony's actually going to come out. It's next Friday. I'll be in Scottsdale. We actually only have one spot left, but he's going to come out and have a short talk with the attendees, and maybe sign some pictures and stuff on Friday. So anyone interested, go ahead and put it in the comments on Facebook or in YouTube when I get it over on there, and I'll get you what you need. So thanks so much, Tony.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
All right, you bet. We'll talk to you again real soon here.
All right. Sounds good.
Have a good one.
Yeah, you too.